Ooh, that's a bit loud. So I think I'm live. It's 8 a.m. in Manchester. Welcome. I'm guessing you can hear me. Please send me a message to make sure you can, to tell me that you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? Thank you very much. Thanks, Fred, and thanks everybody for joining. This is amazing. I'm quite excited. I'm quite terrified as well. I don't know why I should be terrified, but there we go. I am a little bit. It's quite exciting. So again, thanks for joining. So we're going to do this every Friday, same time, obviously, because it's easier to remember. And yeah, I've got my setup here. I've got my water. I've got my coffee in my amazing SAP Coffee Corner Radio podcast cup or mug. So I've got my coffee ready here. I've got my microphone, which you can sort of see here in the video. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll get a different angle for it. I've got a little hack as well to stop the springs on the arm from pinging all the time when I type. I've got my keyboard and everything. The keyboard's a little loud. It's got Cherry MX Blues. I've ordered another keyboard actually, just a good excuse to be a bit quieter. Yeah, we're gonna get going now. So I've got this scene here with my video, and we've got the chat here as well. But I'm going to move now to my main, sort of the main scene, which is actually this screen right here. So you should be able to see me, you should be able to see the chat, and you should be able to see my left-hand monitor. So just a bit of housekeeping. We're just going to do this once, this very first time. We've got a schedule there, and you've got links as well and about me and everything. But I guess maybe most importantly is, all the people I can see in the chat. You know, you're all awesome folks and everything. And I know that I don't need to tell you this, but let's just do this anyway, because yes, it's going to be recorded, and you'll be able to see these VODs, video on demand. That's apparently what you call them in Twitch and in these live streaming sort of scenarios. So basically, you know, all the common sense rules apply. We've also got, in the SAP community, we've got this sort of rules of engagement here with participation etiquette. You know, again, it's common sense, be polite and friendly to each other. We're basically here to learn with each other and from each other. So yeah, basically be nice to each other and be gentle with me, because as usual, I've no idea what I'm doing, but I thought I'd give it a go and see. Okay, without further ado, let's jump in. We're going to do this for an hour, so if there's any questions as well, please just type them in the chat. I've got the chat over here on my right-hand monitor, and I can see it quite well. So if there's any questions you have throughout, you know, just dive in. There's all sorts of things you can do on Twitch with bots and so on, and commands that can be repeated and everything. But oh, thank you, Frank. Yes, we can. Very loud there in the capitals. But I've not done that yet, so I'm just starting out on this sort of whole journey with you folks. Maybe if you're interested, one particular episode, I can go through my setup, I can go through my physical hardware setup, I can go through the setup I've done for streaming to Twitch and so on, and the things I'm using, like for example here, I'm using Streamlabs and all sorts of different things here, and you know, it's a pretty good set of tools that I have at my disposal, or anybody has at their disposal for doing this sort of thing. So the general idea is that I'm going to do this weekly on Fridays at 8 a.m. in Manchester time, and we're going to talk about SAP dev topics. So a backbone topic that I'm going to start out with over the next few weeks is the cloud application programming model, which probably doesn't surprise some of you, specifically the Node.js flavor. Of course, you know, there's a Java flavor as well, but I'm going to stick with the Node.js flavor. Tell you what, it's really odd sort of looking into a camera. You know, obviously I've spoken at conferences and everything and speaking to people on stage, but I'm just speaking to this plastic thing here, which is just a little bit odd. So I'll get used to it, I guess. I've got my stream health here. Anyway, we're going to use that as a backbone of stuff to talk about and stuff to hack on. But because I'm trying to think of about a million things at once right now, I thought I'd start out quite easy for us all and get our brains warmed up. So if we have a look at the at our tutorial navigator on developers.sap.com, you can find that yourself, I'm sure. There's a ton of tutorials and missions and groups and so on, and we've got a relatively new tutorial from this month, actually, from a colleague of mine, Andre Foreman. He's written a Node.js flavored version of some tutorials we already had on the cloud application programming model. We're not going to go through this tutorial specifically right now. We probably will end up doing that at a later stage and then digressing and so on, and sort of going off-piste, as it were. It is sort of ski season after all. But the reason I brought this particular tutorial up is because if you have a look through this, and rather than scroll down, I'm just going to jump straight to one of the steps here. VS Code, yes. We're going to be using VS Code. I'm going to be using VS Code in this series, but actually today, because it's the first one and because it's still my favorite editor, I'm going to be using Vim and tmux and so on, just because. One of the things I wrote in one of my Monday morning thoughts posts that some may have read is that, I wanted to renew my my foo in all things Vim and plugins and so on. So I've been trying to do that, and so I've got some plugins I've been using, some awesome plugins. I've ripped my Vim RC apart and started again. So if you're interested, we can have a session on that as well at a later stage. Anyway, I'm going to jump to this initial stage. By the way, is this the resolution? Oh, you wouldn't believe the stuff I had to look into for streaming resolution and bit rates and so on. But just shout if the resolution of the text on this screen right now is too small. I'm going to assume it's okay for now. I think it's okay. I'm going to jump to this add initial data here. Where are we? Here we go. Yeah, okay. No, actually not add initial data. Provide mock data. I'm going to jump straight ahead because one of the things, if you read through this tutorial, which is a really good tutorial, you'll come across all sorts of features of the cloud application programming model, one of which is, you can very easily mock data by, writing some code that spits out or that provides data. And, if you're running past this, when did I run this morning? There's a link for you. If you run past this at a high speed and just glance at it, you wouldn't recognize this necessarily as JavaScript. But it is. And some of the folks working on the cloud application programming model team in Waldorf and elsewhere, this is sort of this comes from them, and they're very sort of what's the word I'm looking for? They're very well up on ES6, ECMAScript 6, which is the 2015 version of JavaScript, which sounds out of date, but actually it's still for many of us quite new. So this, there may be some constructs here that look a little bit odd. So what we're going to do, and there's another example here. If we look at the custom logic step, there's some other stuff here. We got some odd curly braces here. That's destructuring. We've got the fat arrow syntax for function definitions and so on. We've got all sorts of really, really juicy ES6 aspects of JavaScript. And of course, also what we're not seeing here is semicolons. It's very trendy not to have semicolons these days. So I'm trying to not use semicolons in JavaScript. Anyway, so rather than dive straight into the application programming model, I thought we'd warm ourselves up with a little bit of ES6 JavaScript, and what better to do that by maybe solving some problems. Might be too small for screen, smaller than 19 inch. I think. Okay, so what I'll do. Hey, hi Patricia. And by the way, thank you all for joining and coming along. That's awesome. Oh my goodness, we've got 55 viewers here. This is incredible and scary. So. I'll just make this a little bit bigger, but actually we're going to move away from the browser and spend most of our time in the terminal. So I'm going to make this font a little bit bigger. I think we can afford to make this font quite big. But before we move into the terminal, actually, let's bring up a puzzle. Now, this puzzle, I've done this puzzle before, and I know that it's sort of a nice and interesting one for us to do. There's 2 parts to it. We're going to read through it very slowly. Hold on, somebody said my screen is smaller. My screen is smaller. Miles, your screen is huge. I've seen it. But yeah, okay, resolution rather than size. Much better. Thank you very much. Okay. And thank you, Strotlog, for confirming 17 inches okay. 17 inch, amazing. Yes, I have a 17 inch somewhere. So yeah, this is a puzzle in 2 parts. It's very straightforward. So I think it's a good thing for us to start with, especially because, of course, maybe many of you haven't seen this puzzle. So let's just close that one. That was just to log what's going on here. So yeah, let's just dive straight in. This is Advent of Code. It comes out every year. I'm not going to talk about Advent of Code too much, but it's an amazing sort of annual thing that happens. I've done some puzzles, not all of the puzzles, the past few years, and it's sort of Santa Christmassy themed and Santa's helpers and everything. But anyway, the key thing is, I'm going to highlight it here. This is the first thing we're going to solve. And then we're going to, solve part 1, and then we're going to solve. Oh, there's a cat there. But then we're going to solve part 2. By the way, I've got the blinds open. It's just coming light here, and I like the windows or the blinds open. So if a postman comes or the milkman or somebody, I'm going to have to get up because this is live and everything. But anyway, let's solve this. So we've got. Let's just dive straight in. Below the message, the device shows a sequence of changes in frequency. Your puzzle input. A value like +6 means the current frequency increases by 6. A value like -3 means the current frequency decreases by 3. And you start with a frequency of 0. This sounds more complicated than it is right now. For example, if the device displays frequency changes of, and we're going to copy these, +1, -2, +3, and then +1. I'm going to copy those right now. Then starting from a frequency of 0, the following changes would occur. Current frequency 0 +1, it's now 1. So you're 1. Then you get -2, so you're -1. And then you get a -1, so -1 and -1, and then you get +3. Then it's 2 again, then it's 2. And then you get a currency frequency change of +1. So 2 + 1 is 3. So the resulting frequency after going through all these different changes, starting from 0, +1, -2, +3, +1 is 3. Okay, so, and the general idea, if you haven't seen Advent of Code, is that you get this sort of description and you get this sort of example input and the expected output. So you get the input of +1, -2, +3, +1 here. You get the expected output of 3. So starting with a frequency of 0, what is the resulting frequency after all of the changes in frequency have been applied? Okay, so I've done this before. The answer is 406, so that's what we're looking for. But we're going to go through this again from scratch with some new code. At the bottom here, you get your puzzle input, and everybody's puzzle input is different, by the way. And the puzzle input, I'm going to click on that, and it looks like this. And you get all sort, you get 1,000. I think it's 1,000, maybe 1,000 plus different frequency changes. So we're going to have to grab this shortly, but we'll start out by that's big now. We'll start out by just grabbing, or we have already grabbed, the example puzzle input. So I guess the question is, how are we going to do this? How are we going to have a development setup with a quick turnaround of results, so we get an immediate feedback and so on. So I'm going to start out. So let's go into my projects folder and make the episode 0. There we go. So what I'll do is just initialize this as a new npm repo with using JavaScript and everything, and using Node. This is obviously server-side JavaScript. One of the really cool things about the cloud platform, and especially Cloud Foundry, is that JavaScript is a first-class language for us, not only on the front end with UI5 and other front-end frameworks, but also on the back end. It's really nice. By the way, the chat's gone quiet. I'm guessing you're still okay. Christian, finally I'm going to learn some JavaScript and NJS. Is that ninjas or something? That's quite exciting. So package name, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there we go. This is okay. Yes. The reason I've done this is because I'm trying to, follow good practice, but also we're going to install, I intend to install an NPM package that will help us sort of monitor and rerun things when I change stuff. I've got one thing already set up, so you're not looking at me typing a ton of stuff, but we're going to actually write the solutions together live. Okay, so I've got a package JSON, which looks like that. Now, is that big enough? I think it's big enough. I'm going to move this, what's it called? This microphone down a bit so I can see the screen. There we go. But we've also got an index.js. So if you look at the package.json, by default, it will, if you run this package, it will run index.js, which is